Hello, and welcome to another micro-training video, this time on the dbutils library. Short for Databricks Utilities, it is a library that is automatically imported into each session in Databricks, both notebooks and jobs. You do not need to import dbutils yourself, it is already done for you. The dbutils library contains all sorts of functions that mimic command line commands and file system commands in a Databricks safe way. The Databricks official documentation has documentation for dbutils, and it's very good. And you can see here all of these submodules offered as part of the dbutils library. Credentials, data, and so on. We are going to focus on the FS submodule today, FS for file system. And if you look at all of the functions that are available as part of dbutils.fs, you might recognize some of them if you're familiar with the command line. CP for copy paste, LS for list, mount, unmount, MV for move, RM for remove, and so on. We're going to take a tour of many of these today. But the first thing we need to do is we need to mount an S3 workbench location onto our Databricks file system. If you're unfamiliar with mounting, we have another micro-training video on S3 workbenches and mounting. I'm not going to talk about it in a lot of detail in this video, so if you're unfamiliar, please look at that micro-training. So I have a location here on the S3 workbench under CDR PSA community, which I have access to, and I'm going to mount it onto /mnt/demo. This is a dbutils function, dbutils.fs.mount. So I'll run that. And then as proof that this worked, I'm going to run dbutils.fs.ls/mnt/demo. ls will list out all of the files and folders in the demo location, and this display function is optional, but it will make my output look a little bit prettier. So here's what is in the mounted demo location. There's a couple of files and folders in here. Notably, there is an example data subfolder. So let's look in there. I'm going to display dbutils.fs.ls of that example data subfolder. And there are a lot of sample data sets in here. I'm just going to pick the trusty diamonds.csv file. And to prove that this is indeed mounted and readable, I can even read in this data set, show you the first 3 rows. It has indeed worked. If you ever need help on any of these dbutils.fs functions, there is a built-in .help. So here is the help page for the MV function. It can be a little bit hard to read, however. It is written in the traditional Scala style of documentation. So while this is readable, it is there, it is understandable, I highly suggest the web documentation being a little bit better here. All right, let's try some additional functions. I'm going to run dbutils.fs mkdirs. Note the S, it's not normally plural in your command line, but it is mkdirs for make directories. /mnt/demo/report data. I'm going to make a new folder called report data. And then I'm going to run the CP for copy paste function. And I'm going to take that diamonds.csv file, and I'm going to move it into this new report data folder that I just made. And to prove that it worked, finally, I will ls this report data folder to show you that it is indeed in there. There it is. And for further proof, I can read it in again and show it to the screen, the first 3 rows. There it is. Okay, let's say I want to undo what I just did. I can use the rm function. dbutils.fs.rm. I'm going to remove this whole folder, and I'm going to set recurse equals true. That means I'm going to remove this folder recursively. That is, I'm going to remove this folder, and then everything inside this folder, and then everything inside those subfolders, and so on. So in this example, there's only one file in this folder, and that will also be deleted when I delete the parent folder. When I run this, I'm running the ls command to prove to you that there is now no longer a report data folder, but I also want to point out that there was no additional output when I ran the rm function. Just like in the command line, the rm function is destructive and silent. If you are running the rm function, please, please, please be aware of what you are deleting when you delete it, It can't be undone, and there is very rarely a buffer asking you to make sure that you really do what you want to do. So please just think twice before using the RM function. Okay, so in addition to the dbutils.fs library, you can also run these functions using Databricks magics, or sometimes called macros. So every function in dbutils.fs has an associated magic. Magics begin with the percent symbol and should be the only line in that cell. So for example, the dbutils fs function can be accessed with %fs space ls space and then where you want to go. Quotation marks optional. And there it is. It even prints it out using the pretty display method that we saw up above, so you don't need the display function. This is just another way of doing the same thing that I've already showed you, but if you're coding relatively quickly, this is a little bit quicker to just type out. You don't need to type out all of those words and dots. It saves a couple seconds, but it is a little snappy when you want to do it. All right, before we finish up, we have to unmount our mount. Remember that unmounting is not an optional step. It is best practice to programmatically unmount your mount when your code is finished or at the end of the workday. So, being a good user, I'm going to unmount my /mnt/demo folder. I should receive a true when that is finished. All right, so let's close out here. In this video, we explored the dbutils.fs submodule, which allows us to run command line commands in a Databricks safe way. If you use the traditional OS or shell util library in Python, you might run into some troubles when working with the Databricks file system. The dbutils library is much more than just FS. Most of the library is dedicated to advanced developer tools such as inspecting jobs, running notebooks remotely, and managing secrets and APIs. If you want to use those, read the docs. The documentation that Databricks builds is very, very good. I do want to bring up one notable submodule within dbutils, which is the widgets submodule. This is useful for creating visual dropdowns for Databricks dashboards. This is beyond the scope of this video, but I just wanted to bring it up because I know a lot of our users are building dashboards. So if you want to learn more about that, read the documentation on dbutils.widgets. Okay, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.